Hello and welcome to my senior project video. My name is Geer, and I'm going to be walking you through the process with which I was able to build my own solar panels and the practical applications of alternate energy sources for a variety of electronic appliances. So let's get started. Alright, so the first thing you want to do when you start building your solar panels is you want to make sure that you have all the materials that you'll need for the project. So first and foremost, obviously you'll want some solar cells. And the solar cells that I'll be using are polycrystalline. And what that means is there are monocrystalline cells and there are polycrystalline cells. Polycrystalline aren't as efficient and high grade as monocrystalline, which makes them less expensive, a lot easier to buy in bulk, and especially if you're doing a project like this for the first time, they're good cells to practice with and learn with. And I'll be using two different types of polycrystalline cells, ones with tabs are here at the bottom, and the ones without tabs. The ones without tabs are a little higher of a grade, which is why you have to manually put the tabs on, and I found that the ones with the tabs are a little bit stronger and not as much as a hassle as you'll see to put the tabs on. And I'll be showing both ways of building the solar panels with both the tabbed and the untabbed. So next you're going to want a good soldering gun. This one's only 18 watts. It's not very powerful and it doesn't really need to be. And with the soldering gun, you'll need some electrical solder. This is just for stringing the cells together and making sure that the connections are strong. You'll also need some tabbing wire. This looks like solder, but it's a lot thinner, and it's what you see at the bottom of the tabbed cells. This is what you use to tab the untabbed cells with. And then you'll need this stuff called bus wire. It looks a lot like the tabbing wire, but it's a little bit thicker. And what this is used for is when you have a string of solar cells together, and when you've soldered them correctly, like so, you need to connect the strings together, and the bus wire is used to connect the strings together to keep the current flowing. Next, you're going to want something to measure the voltage of the solar cells with, just to make sure they work and to see how much energy you're getting out of them. So you can buy these things off eBay for a couple of bucks, so they're really helpful. And finally, you'll need some tape. I found that taping the cells on the back, like so. This right here is are the tabs being soldered together, which you'll see later on. But the tape really helps keep them together so they don't move, and it just makes for a nicer looking panel. So those are all the basic materials that you'll need to build these solar panels. And next step would be to tab the untabbed cells if you're using untabbed cells. So let's check that out. Alright, so this is what the untabbed cell looks like. And here's the untabbed cell with the tabs manually put on them. So how you want to do this is you want to take some of your tabbing wire and you want to measure out the length of two cells, because it has to attach onto the front of the first cell and attach to the back of the second cell when you string them together. So you're going to want to measure that out, cut the tabbing wire, then do the same for the other side, and cut that part out. And then what you want to do is you want to take your rosin pen, which this stuff really just protects the cell when you're soldering to the front of it, and you just want to take the pen and go right down the cell, just in case anything gets on the actual cells themselves. And really, adding tabbing to the untabbed cells, it's honestly not worth it, because it takes a lot longer and it's really a hassle to tab every single cell before you put them together. So it's really a pain. Well, it's just a pain. So what you want to do from here is you want to take your soldering gun, take a little bit of solder, put it on the top of the cell like this. And do the same on the other side, just like that. Put that away. Then you want to take your cut tabbed wire, and you want to line it up where the tabbing is on these untabbed cells. You want to line it up, and then how you want to do this, you want to hold your soldering gun like so that you can just solder it to the top, and then slowly slide it down, just like this. When you're doing this, you want to be careful to not get too close to your finger, because soldering guns are pretty hot and they can burn if you're not careful. So see, it's pretty easy. Just attach one tab and then do the exact same thing for the next one. And there you go. That's how you tab, or at least the easiest way, in my opinion, to tab the untabbed cells. And now it'll look almost identical to the already pre-tabbed cells. So next, what you want to do is you want to string the cells together in a line. Okay, so now that we've tabbed our cells, we're going to want to line them up in a string so that we can attach them all together. It doesn't really matter how many you string in a row, just as long as you have the same in every row. So for this first panel that I'll be doing, I'll be having 7 cells per row and 4 rows of those 7 cells, so 28 cells in total. It's pretty good math right there. So how you want to line these things up, you want to line them up with the back side facing you so that you can solder them together. So you just want to grab 7 cells and you want to line them up. And make sure you extend the tabs to make things easier. And the way you want to do this is you want to line them up like this so that the tabs of one of them go onto the back of the other. The tabs go from the front side, which is actually the negative side. So the tabs go from negative to positive. They go from the negative side of one cell to the positive side of the other cell, so that the current can keep flowing. Alright, so now that you've got your 7 or however many you need cells lined up, you want to make sure that the tabs are more or less lined up with the white spots on the other cells. So now what you want to do is take the tape. I've been using packaging tape, but it doesn't really matter what tape you use. Heat this stuff. You're going to want to measure for however long your cells are, so you can kind of tape them together. And you're going to cut it. I just use a soldering iron because why not? Well, and then you're going to want to very carefully tape your cells together. You want to leave a little space in between the cells just to make sure you don't pull them together, because that could lead to breaking further down the road. So once that's done, please understand that tape is not sufficient for carrying the electrical current through the cells. That's where all the soldering comes in. So this part of the building process is probably the one where you're going to burn yourself the most with the soldering iron. Unless you're really good, then I guess not. But what you want to do is fold the tabs up, and then where the white spots are, that's where you connect the tabs between the cells. So how you want to do this is you want to take a little bit of solder and just put it on the white spot. Alright, so then once you do that, then you want to fold the tabs back down, like so. And then you just want to solder them together. Like I said, probably gonna burn yourself a lot at this part of the project. Alright, so once you make sure you got all 6 of the spots, and that's how you tab the cells together. Pretty simple process, burn your fingers a lot, but it's not too bad. So then you just want to repeat this process for the rest of the cells. Alright, so now that we've replaced the broken cell, we're going to want to continue where we were and use the bus wire to attach the 2 strings of solar cells. So like I was saying, it is vitally important that you make sure that you line the strings up right. So you're going to want to lay them both very carefully this time, with the positive end at the back facing you. You want to lay them just like this. The only difference is one of them is going to have the tabs at the bottom, and one of them is going to have the tabs on the other side. So they'll be opposite. So now you want to take your tabbing wire, and I want to measure this part right here. You're going to want to measure it so that it comes down just like the tabbing wire from here, except this tabbing wire is coming from the negative side, whereas this tabbing wire will be coming from the positive side, and they'll both be attached. So now, just like tabbing those ridiculously painful untabbed cells, we're going to want to attach the tabs to these cells too. So we'll just do it just like we've been doing it in the past. Alright, so now that we have these parts soldered, I want to point out the difference. So the big difference here is that, see, this tabbing wire is attached to the negative side, or the front of the cell, and now this wire is attached on the positive side of the cell. Now we're going to use the bus wire to attach across here. At this point, I would also recommend that you want to put tape down the middle, just like we did for the strands of cells. You're going to want to do the same thing just to help keep them together and make it look organized. Like I said before, this just makes for a much sturdier solar panel. It'll be easier and safer to pick up, and the cells are less likely to break. So now that that's done, we're ready to use our bus wire. So how you want to do this is you just want to measure out a piece of bus wire the same length as 2 of the cells wide, or about 2 of the cells wide, so that you can attach them to the tabs. So I'll cut it here. Dropped it. how you want to do this. You just want to line up the bus wire like that. And then a technique that I've found really helpful when doing this part is you take the extra tabbing that's at the end and you just kind of fold it over on top of the bus wire. Not only will this ensure a very secure connection between the bus wire and the tabbing wire once you solder it, it kind of helps it stay in place. Alright, so as soon as you finish folding these edges over, then you can start soldering them. Then once that's done, you can just snip off the extra pieces, and that's how you add the bus wire to the cells to allow the current to go from one cell to the next cell. So then once you finish these first initial steps and you've successfully strung together your solar cells, then you string them together in a line using the bus wire, you essentially just repeat this process until you have the desired number of cells and strings that you want. So we'll check on back as soon as this panel's finished. I'll finish it up using, or continuing, the 7 cells long by 4 rows of cells. So 7 cells long, 4 cells wide. We'll check back when we're done. So then, once you've strung together the desired number of cells, you want to encapsulate them to protect them from the weather. So what I did was, I just attached them to a piece of plexiglass so that the front of the cells can be protected once they're encased. Then after you do this, you're going to want to attach your wires that's going to transfer all the energy from the panels to the battery. So what this looks like is you just want to add a bunch of solder to the stripped end of the wire to the bottom of the cells where the energy is going to leave, and you just want to solder it all together. Then once you finish encapsulating it, you're going to want to put it in a casing. So what I did was I just got some wood from Lowe's and built a case around it out of wood and plywood. And then after that, you can start wiring it up. So now onto the wiring stage. What you want to do, or the basic configuration for wiring a solar panel, is you want the power from the panel to go to a charge controller, which then charges a battery, and then the battery is wired up to a power inverter because solar power is not grounded, it's AC power, so you need to convert it to DC power. So basically all you do is you can get a charge controller on eBay for $5, $10. You can see here we're getting a little bit of solar energy. The light's a little green. So you want to hook up the panel, wire it to the controller, and the controller outputs from the charge controller to the battery. And the battery is actually what gets charged, and then the battery can power the power inverter. So that's just a basic setup for a solar energy output configuration. You can have multiple batteries if you have a large solar array or a lot of power, but this panel that I made isn't a very high voltage panel, so we won't be needing more than one basic small little battery. To demonstrate the power, we've let our solar panel charge for a little bit, and now that we wired it up, we can turn on the power inverter and actually charge our laptop. This concludes the video, as the solar array is finally complete and the panel is all encapsulated and wired up. I hope you enjoyed learning the process through which I was able to build my own solar panels, and I hope you can see how easy it is to get a form of free energy.